Okay, we're going to talk about product a little bit to give you an awareness of what is available out there, but one thing I wanted to do is also show you this photograph. I hope you can see it. It's basically the pore structure of the biochar under an electron microscope. And as you can see, those little pores are the nooks and crannies or the luxury condos that we talked about earlier. A lot of surface area in there. Here's another different type of a wood structure. And one thing I will share with you about biochar, and then we'll talk about these products as well, is that regardless of what type of soil you have, this is what we call the soil chart. It's not a linear thing like, clay on one side and sandy on the other, as it might be simplified to explain, but it's really a little bit more of a triangle because there's a lot of different kinds of soils. We're always trying to get into this center here. Clay loamy, medium loam, and that loamy. Loamy is that beautiful soil that has aeration and tillage and drainage and microbiology in it and humus in it. It's really good stuff. But when we're talking about sandy soil, obviously there's a lot of problems. Water rushes right past it. Nutrients right down, out. No real place for microbiology to take hold. Sandy soil is pretty lousy. By incorporating or building your biochar into a sandy soil, you have now turned around those three issues completely. Because now you're going to have lots of water retention, you're going to have lots of nutrient retention, and you're going to have a wonderful habitat for the microbiology. So it takes it more to a loamy style. Now on the other end, we have clay. And here in Ventura, other than the coastlines, pretty much everything is clay. It's hard, it's dense. It has lots of water, lots of nutrients. But it's so hard and dense and has such high surface tension, the roots can't get in there and access it. So what biochar does is you incorporate it into your clay soil. You'll increase that tillage and that loamy or feel, that drainage and that aeration. And you'll give it back to that soil. And now all that good stuff in there will be accessible to the roots and the plants. So biochar, regardless of whether you're in the sandy side or the clay side, moves you to that loamier consistency in the middle. Very important to know that. So it doesn't really matter what type of soil you're putting it in. Does it work in all soils? Yeah, it does. Does it work to the same level in all soils? No. It's always a little different. The one thing about biochar, and nature firms this up, is that it's good for all soils. Everywhere on the planet there was a fire at one point. Maybe not in a long time, which is not a good thing. California has the lowest carbon in the nation, less than 1%. And several of the big growing states in the Midwest have up to 6%. Part of that is the natural habitat, or the indigenous peoples burned the Great Plains every year. They knew when they burned the grasses after they had died off that they would re-enrich the soil and bring back the grass even better, so they can make sure that the buffalo and the elk and the deer came back. And with the prairie dogs burrowing underneath those plains, bringing aeration and organic material down, when those two things hit at one point in history, they had tremendous fertility. That's why they call it the breadbasket. Even though they have a short growing season and very brutal weather, they rival us because they have more carbon in the soil. They can grow more and better than we can. People think, oh, California and Texas are the biggest in the world. Yeah, only because we have the most territory. We have great weather, long season, but we have lousy soil. So, just a quick on the soil. So what we have available is this product here. It's called Seek Organic Bamboo Biochar. It's a straight-up biochar. It is fantastic to use for your composting. It's great for feeding to your chickens, your hogs, your horses, your cattle, whatever. Just mix it into their feed. The chickens, you just throw it down on the ground. They'll find it. They love it. Animals always eat charcoal since the beginning of time after fires. They're naturally attracted to it. So this here is Super Char, made by Organic Solution. It's 80% char and 20% worm castings with rock dust, humate, chitin, the crab shell, and we drench it in a liquid product called ambrosia, which is liquid worm castings. And this comes from this product right here. This is an amazing worm casting product. It's premium worm castings for Organic Solution right here in Camarillo, California, state-of-the-art worm farm. What makes these castings so incredible, one, it has a very high fungal rating. We have worked for years, my friend, Brian, who created this, worked for years to figure out the formula to create this fungal-rich worm casting, and our worm castings never dry out from the time they're being made to the time they're being packaged to the time they're being used in your garden. People, many of our customers tell us they actually see worms propagating from these because they're so fresh still. There are still eggs and babies in here. So it's a wonderful worm casting. Absolute results. You'll be amazed how wonderful it works. John Kohler from Growing Your Greens on YouTube did a side-by-side with this. He didn't even barely mention anything about it. We weren't on the video at all. He just happened to have done it and then mentioned at the end that it was this. Thousands of bags were bought. And we're not very big, you know. We're only available in like a couple of places on the internet, you know. But people went crazy because he's got 1 million followers and they're very loyal and they bought a lot of it. So this is the basis for the superchar, the blend. And we take these premium worm castings and with a special process we extract out the nutrients in liquid form called ambrosia. 4 ounces of this per gallon of water. So that's kind of the core of the biochar products. I do have another product which I'm not going to show, but I'll just explain. It's a pelletized biochar. I sold it for the last 10 years. The source is dried up for right now. The new manufacturer isn't ready to make it yet, so I'm going to run out fairly soon. It was a very nice product. This is a more advanced product. So this is a raw biochar, great for your composting, great for your feeding your animals, your worm bins. It's great for using straight in the soil. But if you're going to be planting a new tree or planting garden work, I recommend using the superchar because it really is a little bit more advanced because it has all the nutrient values in there. This is not. This is straight up biochar. So you want to be able to, in your smaller plantings and your gardens and stuff, use the superchar. And this is about 100 square foot. It's a 1 cubic foot. It's about 100 square foot. Personally, I would only do 50 square feet with these, but do that and then come back the next year and add more. And add more. Now again, people say it's a permanent amendment. Why do I keep adding more? Because you really haven't added the full amount that you would like to add. Some people want to do it right off the beginning. I did. I put 20% in that raised bed over there. I put 20% in the potted plants and in the hanging plants to help them stay, you know, a little wetter because they dry out so easily. So over here, coming over here, I sell mycorrhizae. I'm not going to get into it too much. This is a granule that you can use directly into the soil with the planting, a few grains. This is the soluble. I use mostly this, and I mix it in with water, molasses, and the ambrosia, and I use that as a drench on all my planted, and all my gardens and everywhere, and it really gives a kick, especially that molasses. Raise that Brix level. Molasses is really important. So we'll also do mineralization sometimes as well at the same time. So this is a Boogie Brew Plus. It's a water filter, very important, especially if you live in municipal areas. It'll get out the chlorine and the chloramine. Yes, indeed. Takes out a lot of lime, calcium, and other stuff. I will tell you, absolutely 100% they work. How do I know that? Because the garden hose that I use, that I set this up with, if I didn't have this on there, the little teeny holes in the sprayer clog in a week from all the junk in the water. With this on there, no clog at all. Once they start clogging, I know this isn't working anymore, I can change it out. It's kind of quirky, but I figured that out and it works. This one here is goes at 45,000 gallons, up to 45,000. It's really super duper. It's got charcoal in there, of course, charcoal. They're worth every penny. Worth every single penny. When you use this, don't hook it up directly to the spigot. Put a little hose there because if you put this on the spigot and you do this, you might crack it. So I made a little extra hose to buffer the thing in between. Wonderful, very important thing to have there. Okay, now these things here I'm going to show you. Let's go to this first. We know that biochar powder coated on seeds will make those seeds store so much longer, so much healthier than otherwise. So what I did was I took the pumpkin seeds here, put them in this jar. Now I probably used a little more char than I needed to use, but I just take a small amount, put it in here, shake it up. Those seeds are coated with biochar. They're going to have no humidity problems, no disease problems. They're going to hold in their life and wonderfulness for much longer than without this. So it's great for seed storage. It's also great for seed germination. But what I do when I germinate my seeds is I take 1 gallon of water and I mix 4 ounces of this ambrosia, this liquid worm castings, and then I take 4 milliliters. There's a dropper in here, 1 full dropper full to the gallon of water of the wood vinegar. Because we know the wood vinegar covers those seeds when they're germinating during the fire because they're popping out, it makes them so much healthier. The research in Asia is unbelievable, undeniable. Way more seeds will germinate, and of those that germinate, they germinate way better than without. So what I'm doing here in my seed storage and germination kit, I got to tell you, it just kind of came to me, you know, in kind of like just a moment. I said, because I've been studying, I'm reading this, and all of a sudden I put it all together. Why not just create this little kit, mimicking nature? This is the greatest biomimicry way to store your seeds and germinate your seeds all over. And this kit will germinate tens of thousands of seeds. There's a lot of char in it. You don't need much. There's a lot of wood vinegar. You might need more ambrosia after a period of time, but you can still do a lot with this. So it's a really great way to germinate your seeds. We also have on our site 2 new soaps. This is our original biochar body soap. It's fantastic. This little bar lasts a long time. We also have the tooth soap. This is the tooth soap. Very similar, but not exact. And I take it and I stuff it in a little round dish, you know, so it doesn't get messy everywhere. I have tried the tooth powders. Get all over the place. I have tried several of these toothpastes with charcoal. They taste awful. This one tastes great. No mess, lasts a long time. This will last me months, way longer than a tube of toothpaste. And my teeth are cleaner and brighter and healthier because this really cleans and chelates and takes all the toxins out of your mouth and brightens up your mouth. Great for your breath, great for everything. I was at a hotel last year and I found this in the bathroom, lavender tea and charcoal bath soap at a Red Lion Inn. I couldn't believe it. Charcoal is trending unbelievable in our society. It always was, but now it's really going crazy. Here are 3 different charcoal lemonades, which we had a little bit of mine a little while ago, that are available in stores in Los Angeles. They're not cheap. $6 to $9 a thing. But they're super duper. They got a lot of cool stuff in them. One's alkaline, you know. So that's kind of interesting. Here's a charcoal that you can mix in that we used in our charcoal lemonade. Here is another face mask and tooth soap. Okay, here's a rub-on charcoal magnesium deodorant. Now this is wood vinegar I got from Japan, and it shows on the package, even though it's in Japanese. You can use it to get rid of the smell and the insects in your trash. You can use it for your bath. It makes your skin feel great. You can use it in your laundry. It'll kill really bad smells. You can use it in cleaning things. You can use it in your garden. And I bathe with it. This is what I use to bathe with. Or I use my own, the one I have. It doesn't matter. This is activated charcoal that I feed to the dogs. You know, I also use this in the lemonade too. More cost effective. Activated charcoal capsules. You know, these have been around forever. You know, even charcoal soaps. And I remember when I was a little kid in the 50s and 60s, in the back of teen magazines, you know, they always have this ad, you know, little ads in the back. And one of them was, buy this black soap and have great complexion. And everybody thought it was a joke, but it was real. You know, it was real. It really worked. And it's been around forever. So it just so happens right now, there are hundreds of soaps with charcoal in them from every manufacturer, from big ones to little ones. Charcoal is trending like crazy. This is charcoal for your refrigerator to keep it clean. Charcoal for your shoes, these 2 little things. You stick them in your shoes to deodorize them. Okay, here's a charcoal stick. This is a very special kind of Bichotan charcoal. Very hard, dense wood. Put this in your water bottle. Keeps your water clean. If you have to get water from a sink or a spigot when you're on the road, if you're not using filtered water or whatever good water you have, you can rest assured you're going to clean your water pretty good. After 6 months, you boil it in water for 10 minutes, put it out in the sun, reuse it again. After a while, you just crack it with a hammer and put it in your compost, put it in your garden. Always gets a life. It never gets wasted. Great stuff. So all my water bottles in my car have these in them. You can hear them clanking in there. It's kind of cool. So lots of stuff with charcoal. Okay, so biochar is something fairly new as far as the soil amendment to our minds, but have been around for a very long time. So these are the 2 books that I would recommend highly if you want to read. Terra Preta, a great book, fairly new. This book is a little older, but this is the book, The Biochar Revolution by Paul Taylor. Paul was a NASA physicist. He's a dear friend of mine. He's retiring in Hawaii now. And this is a book that was written with 18 different contributors. Many of them are very dear friends of mine. And they give you real experiential understanding of biochar, not just a bunch of, scientific rhetoric and materials, stuff. And that's all good. There's a lot of books. I have every book on biochar written. But this is the one that you want to read first, along with this one. They're both available on our site. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Now over here, I want to take you one more time over here to this book collection I have, because as I mentioned earlier, talking about fire and how I've been really interested in fire, these are some of the books that I've been reading. Now these are actually children's books. And of all of them, this one here is absolutely precious. The Forest of Fire by Eric Olson, who I believe we're both friends with. Me only on Facebook, but he knows who I am, and we've acknowledged each other. It's a wonderful book to teach children what fire really means, and they take you through it with beautiful prose and beautiful illustrations. I mean, this is really for as adults as much as it is for children. And it's a pleasure to read this to kids. It really is wonderful. You can get this online for like $6 or $8 or something like that. I bought a bunch of them and gave them out. Okay, now here's this one here's on prescribed burning in California wildlands. This is the most important one out of all the textbooks here. The fire phenomenon and the earth system. Many references to biochar in here. This book is incredible. It has all the different levels, from real scientific stuff to basic understandings. Here's one, Fire in California Ecosystems. This is a full-on textbook, peer-reviewed. Here's one, Fire, Friend or Foe. It's a pretty darn good book. This is a nice one, mostly because of the illustrations. There's good illustrations in here. Again, wildfire and what it's about. And when you read these books, you get the understanding how important fire is, and we need to understand that. It's not some scary, terrible thing, although it can be, mostly because we mismanaged. If we didn't mismanage and lived in nature with fire, we would have been a lot better off. But we're here. This is where we're at. We have to learn to deal with it. So here's another one, Conducting Prescribed Fires, a comprehensive manual. A very comprehensive manual, I must say. But out of all of these, this kid's book is awesome, and this textbook is the one. Fire Phenomenon and the Earth System, an interdisciplinary guide to fire science, edited by Claire Belcher. Totally awesome. Many references to biochar in here as well. So that's a little bit of my library, a very small fraction. But I wanted to bring this down to emphasize what fire is and how important it is, and get to know it. I mean, don't be a pyromaniac. I mean, I'm not a pyromaniac. I like fire, but to understand it, to live with it in harmony, not to create destruction. It has all kinds of uses. Dynamite was created for a peaceful purpose. Then it was used for a bad purpose. That's why Nobel made the Peace Prize, to try to counteract that. So we have similar challenges.
So where can we learn more from you?
Well, blueskybiochar.com is my website, and there are videos there that you can look at. There's a couple from the city of Thousand Oaks, from different things that we've done. I did a short video recently on going up to the Upper Ojai burn area and looking at the area. It's kind of desolate in some of the areas when you see the burnout. Part of the reason is it was so much brush, and the fire had so much wind that it burnt really hot, and it scarred the surface. It literally took the silica in the soil and seized it into glass almost. Not really, but almost that way. That's why the water is just flying off, and the mudslides are far worse than they would otherwise be. Plus, instead of having more char left behind, which is the more valuable part of the end of the fire, there was far more ash because everything burned so hot. And there was so much wind, it brought all that oxygen in, it just took everything down to ash so quickly. And then on top of that, we burned buildings with all this toxic materials. And it went in the air, it went into the ground, it went into the water, and then it's going out into the ocean. Not like ordinary runoff of water from rain, it brings a lot of bacteria. We've got bacteria like crazy, but we also have a lot of bad toxins. And that stuff's just going to settle down there. That's not going to go away very quickly. So a lot to think about when it comes to understanding fire, but know one thing. An experience I had in the Mariposa Grove up by Yosemite. A few years back, my wife and I went to take the tour. Turns out that morning we were the only two on the tour. So I had the docent or the ranger all to myself. And I talked this woman's head off, and she knew everything. She was great. First big thing, what about fire? I already knew kind of what the answer was going to be. I wanted to hear from her. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, we realized about 20 years ago, the scientists came to us and said, for the last 75 years of suppressing fires and these things was the worst thing we could have ever done. Those trees will never burn down. They need the fire to clean up the excess plants. They need it to stimulate their seeds. They need it for a whole bunch of reasons. They need the smoke that'll go into the wood vinegar. They need whatever ash will fall down. They need those things. And we deprived it. And what happened was too many trees grew in, and the land can only sustain so many. So that little bit of influence we did when we started suppressing fires in the early 20th century is biting us in the butt here about 100 years later. Because that nature is so balanced in such a way, just click it a little bit, and down the road, the effects will become relevant or apparent.
So all right. So I just wanted you to like finish inviting them to your side. Do you have courses?
I teach freelance at various places. I don't have a regular course. I do, but I do invite people to call me on the phone. Now I know that sounds pretty crazy in this world of social media and digitality of everything. You know, I love an old friend conversation, and my viewers will sometimes call me up on the phone or contact me some other way at first and say, when can I talk? And I will say, I will spend whatever time necessary to bring you up to par on biochar, but most important, building sustainable living soil. Very important. So my website, my Facebook page, Blue Sky Biochar, my personal name, Michael Wittman, Wittman on Facebook. I post every day quite prolifically about everything doing with all the issues that we're concerned about. I'm not doing politics. I'm doing all the other things that are necessary on sustainability, smart thinking, every once in a while a little fun item, but mostly it's about biochar, soil, mycology. One thing I'd like to just kind of wrap up is, in building our soils, we're concerned about having fixed carbon, the biochar, lots of organic carbon, the compost, the worm castings, all the humus, all the great stuff. Mineralization, like I said earlier, very important, but also understanding our fungal balance. We got to build our fungal. Bacterial will go through an ice age. Fungal will die. Just pulling it out of the soil and exposing it to light and air, the fungal dies. It's so sensitive. So we got to understand our mycology and use mycorrhizae and other methods to build that mycology in the soil, because that's one of the most important things of having that balance between bacterial and fungal, and not one taking over the other. And generally, it's usually bacterial taking over, although fungal sometimes does too, in a certain circumstance. So very important. There's so many things about soil. It isn't just buying that bag at the local place. That's the first step. And then the next step is to find all the amendments and all the things that work. And remember, once you do this, you may spend a little bit more money on your soil in the beginning, but that soil is going to be there a long, long time. It's not going to deplete like it would if you just bought a soil and planted something in there. So there is quite a difference in the investment. It's long term, and you get much more out of it. Plus, you grow your own food.